Hello Neverwinter. Here we have an updated version of my Immortal Fighter build for mod 29, and it's pretty strong, if I do say so myself. One of the biggest changes here is that we've changed from being a Dwarf to being a Mezo Renegade. That's because the Dwarf was kind of irritating the hell out of me with the way that it could not stand still when using Brazen Slash, particularly on the second boss in MLMD. Anyone who's run a Dwarf will know that we would just keep getting pulled into its character model presumably because our character model is so small, we could actually run between its legs and it just wasn't registering correctly. So that is the reason for that change. The Mezo Renegade actually gets a few nice little bonuses. This Fairy Fire is a debuff to the enemy, which reduces their defense and also their damage. So when that procs, it's actually very nice. And we also get a 5% bonus to deflect severity, which is more useful than a 5% bonus to defense. The biggest issue with switching from the Dwarf is that you will find if you do get knocked back by something, you'll get knocked back about 20% further, because the Dwarf does have that big reduction in those control effects. So whereas before, you could have got a knockback on a platform and sort of survived just slightly, or just not been blown off the edge, now you're much more likely to get chucked off the edge if you're not careful. Obviously with your shield up you'll still be fine. Yeah, so I normally tie this into a no heal run, but I've not had the opportunity to perform a no heal run, but I am still going to provide you with the updated build. We've stacked a lot more HP for this one, because well, we now have the opportunity to stack more HP. We've got some items coming through that are a much higher item level, and they are very nice. Like this one, the 8% awareness stamina regen from Lair of the Mad Dragon, and these Locket of the Caldera, and the other half of the Caldera set. I haven't put the artifact on because I don't think that one is particularly useful. We show the stats under, yeah, there we go. We've also got these arms on, which proc quite a lot, to be fair. Although they don't appear to be proccing much right now. Ah, there we go. So the advantage of those is that obviously bosses have naturally have combat advantage on you. So you can go from having your shield up and having all of those nice stats, and then when you have to drop your shield, you can then get that proccing again and get those boosted back up. We're also using this Blazing Aegis that can proc Blessed Resilience. It's quite rare that it does it. Obviously if you're not in an actual no healer run, then it'll be proccing anyway, so it won't be a big issue. And that's what it looks like when the Blessed Resilience procs. And obviously when the other Master Boons kick in, the deflect will go up to 90 as well. Right, so the gear, this one from Master Lair the Mad Dragon. This one also from Master Lair the Mad Dragon. I'm just shamelessly stacking the item level with these ones, to be honest. It's the highest item level neck that we can use, basically, that's any good. Doesn't have particularly useful stats for us, but I suppose the forte is quite nice. Obviously in a lot of runs be running the Vistani for the debuff effects. But this is a no-heal build, not a debuff build. We got a Topaz ring, still probably the best tank ring in the game, even with those weird stats on it. For fighters especially, deflect and deflect severity is not easy to come by, or as easy to come by as some other classes. This is still the best tank chest piece, just for pure stats that we can get. This one drops from Master Demon Web Pits, as I'm sure everybody knows if you've been watching the vids. These are an upgrade of... where are they? These ones. You get slightly more stats. And actually more useful stats on the gloves themselves. As I said, I don't really like these reactionary ones, but this one seems to proc often enough for it to be worthwhile. Obviously there are alternatives, but yeah, these seem to work quite well. I put the Manticore ring on here instead of the threat ring, but I mean the threat ring slots into it just as well. You just need to tweak a couple of things if you go for that one instead. Probably put the threat ring on for AoE and then stick with the Manticore ring in single. Again, this is... I know we lose a few stats here, or ability score points, but it's enough item level to make up for the loss of the Constitution, and those are some really good defensive stats on it. Got the Void Touched here. I'm not too... Obviously the Void Touch don't work particularly well in an AoE situation, but if you actually read the bonuses that we get, that's quite good. We get that 5% damage resistance, and then we can build up to another 6% incoming, or build up to a 6% incoming damage reduction, which is actually a different thing to damage resistance. Incoming damage reduction reduces the numbers before they hit your defensive stats. So incoming damage reduction is vastly superior to damage resistance when it comes to these sort of bonuses. The fact that this has the 6% incoming damage reduction once it ramps up, plus the damage resistance, does make these the best ones, provided that we can get that bonus. Obviously these Solarium weapons just have that static minus 6% incoming damage. So in a AoE situation, the Solarium would be preferable. And because that one doesn't have to ramp up as well, there are situations where these are more useful for sure. Obviously that's just the other set, other half of the set. Mythlar, I'm glad that we've got so many other debuff artifacts now, because Mythlar is and always has been a tank artifact without stamina regen on it. I'm gone for the deflect shit. Obviously with no healer, we stack the heals as high as possible, or stack the self heals as high as possible. And these are just really, really useful pants. And it only has to be one member of your team that is further away than the 30 feet. I don't know if that's a bug or if that's just how they're supposed to operate. But the uptime is very high. We finally have a higher item level artifact with some stamina regen on, which is nice. This was released with the previous battle pass, if I remember rightly. Just really good all-round tank one. Shame there isn't 3 defensive stats on it, but what can we do? Again, just stacking that stamina regeneration. It's really effective with the extra HP we've got now. I'm kind of at two minds about these. Again, it's mainly stacking item level. But there are some, yeah, these damage resistant boots are also very good. But I don't know, it takes some sort of calculation whether or not 3.75% awareness and 3.75% deflect is equal or greater than 5% damage resistance. If anyone fancies doing that calculation, be my guest, but I'm having an alright time with these boots. You'll notice our HP is significantly higher. Well, significantly. It's a fair bit higher than the previous version of this build. There is two main reasons for that. We've got the Capri on, and we are also running the Bulwark of Brimstone. And then when certain Master Boon procs, we also get a nice little bump to that. So what this is doing, that extra, I think 300 or so K that we've got there, the amount you can shield is based upon your maximum HP. So that shield bar there is effectively, I don't know if it's equal to your HP, but the more HP you have, the higher the value of that shield, basically. So an extra 20% HP is equal to an extra 20% shield. And then if we combine that with our extremely high stamina regen, obviously only 86%, 0.3 flat right now, but once everything procs in, significantly higher. It's just how this entire build works, basically. You're treating your shield as basically a very fastly recharging HP bar. You'll notice in those no healer runs. I don't think this thing can actually do enough damage for me to show it, but maybe I'll do a display of that at some point as well. But yeah, the extra HP is doing good things for the survivability, basically. I've just put in obviously what we need to balance the stats up here. We're running the combat balance, so the closer these stats are together, the more damage resistance we get, up to 10%. It's foolish not to take advantage of that. The flash freeze is still the best utility thing to run. It's actually the best tank thing to run as well. It's that 6% outgoing damage to the target that is the thing, because that's again reducing their base, reducing the damage coming in before it hits your defensive stats, which is much more useful than just straight damage resistance. Again, they could really do with equalising the terminology in this game. We've got like damage reduction and reduced outgoing damage to the target and reduced incoming damage. It'd be nice to have some actual clear delineation on those. But yeah, the flash freeze is the best one for group utility and your own survivability, provided you have relatively decent stats. Obviously the amount of stats you get from the celestial fortified nature is obscene. The problem is they all disappear when that heal kicks in, so it's a little bit risky to use if you are relying on them for the stats. If you're just using it for the heal, it's less of an issue. Powers wise, we haven't changed anything here. Obviously we need to pop a daily to get that Manticore's main ring to activate. So we've got the Earthshaker on. It really depends what content you're running. Earthshaker is really good if you're in a group of mobs and there's sort of overwhelming you. Like the first boss, MLMD, although you want to be careful not to pull too much aggro. Enforced Threat, really good thing to pull with. Line Breaker, absolutely brilliant. Sometimes I'll run Shield Throw if I need a ranged pull. If I need to do a bit of damage, I might use Bull Charge. And KV, really good for threat maintenance and stamina regen. You might have seen some of my previous videos where I've been using Knight's Challenge and Iron Warrior and stuff. They are situationally quite useful as well. If you're getting massive tank busters coming in, or you're having situations where it's really difficult to get your stamina back fast enough. Boons, we're running 5 master boons and no advanced boons. This might seem a bit excessive, but there is a reason for this. Life Lessons procs absolutely loads. I don't know if it's a bug, I don't know what's going on with it, but that goes off a hell of a lot on the tank when you're using your at-wills. Focus Retaliation, standard part of the tank kit. Don't really need these ones, especially not these AoE ones. Yeah, the last thing we want to be doing is relying on because the thing is, if you've taken more than 50% of your HP in a single blow, then that is the tank buster. So you need these stats before that happens, basically. You don't want to be relying on it happening afterwards. This feels like it procs quite a lot as well. I don't know if it actually does, but that damage reduction, when it does kick in, you will feel it. It's quite significant. Obviously, the more boons you have, the more you can slot in. You need to have at least 102, I think. Have we got any spare stuff there? Yeah, so you need like 102 boons to slot this particular configuration. Defense in the defense. Power in the offense. Revive sickness. If you've got it and you do potentially die, you need to have this, because it's the amount of stats you lose when you get revive sickness on is significant, and it's especially an issue for a tank. Obviously the DPS are just doing less damage generally. They get a little bit squishier, but if you're the tank, you're taking a significant amount more damage if you start losing your stats. Right, so obviously this being a no healer build, and it was just going to be a no raptor run as well, but generally you're probably going to be required to be running a raptor in there. Wherever the hell that is, there it is. But if you do not need to run a raptor, this Elaine's thing is absolutely brilliant. It procs very regularly. There we go. And that damage is actually quite good for maintaining aggro as well, weirdly enough. I suppose it makes sense, but it's a very good sort of passive aggro maintenance. If you need to tank in, you're probably not going to be able to get hold of the Regis or the Bruno. There are alternatives, but obviously they get synergy between the two of them, which is why they're saying 4.7 on each. There are alternatives. Basically, you just aim for the stats and get them however you can. We've got a slight mix and match of companion gear here. This is the newer stuff. I don't like paying AD for companion gear that is bound to character, but I bought some just for this video. At least we do actually have some decent combinations of defensive stats now. Before, well, a few mods There's been a few mods where it's been absolutely useless companion gear. But again, it's just the balance stats for the combat balance feat that the fighter has. We're in dulled senses. I mean, if you're running endgame, the things, if you wanted to adapt this build for endgame group content, you can do. We're just switching a few things around basically. I'm running dulled senses at the minute because that's sort of a group oriented ability. But there's a lot more stuff you could put on, like if you wanted to go full sort of Immortal Fighter, you can put the old redemption on, give yourself another self heal. Weapon break would probably be quite useful actually, to reduce the damage that's coming at you. There's a lot of different configurations you can use. We've got a lot of these enduring stuff coming in now as well, which are quite interesting. I think it was Bobby the Barbarian's got like an enduring fortification or something for defense. So, you know, there's many ways to configure it basically. Mount wise, we have, as I keep saying, Providence, one of the most underrated equip bonuses you can have for general survivability. Is incredibly, it can be very timely. It can be very timely with those heals, and it can be any party member getting struck that procs it. We've got Eclipse line in here. It's just a nice one. If you are running the tank, it's nice to be able to run one that has a damage reduction effect as well. If you get caught slightly out, you can use that to help yourself out, like in Moon Dancer for example. If you're running the E-line or the Swarm, you can chuck that off before it does the big tank buster. It can be especially helpful if you've got a few stacks on you. But you know, they could be in group content again, they could be asking you to run anything. And usually in group content they'd want you to run some like pack tactics. But again, this is no healer build, so we do what we want. I've had to well, I was thinking about going for stacking even more HP and using more fortifieds, but in the end I settled for a sort of half and half, and it's working quite well. The Gladiator's Guild, movement speed is a very important stat in this game. I don't think it's been well, it's not reported as much enough, because obviously the ability to get out of a dangerous situation, avoiding damage, is better than tanking damage basically. So if you're fast enough to get out of the way of the damage and then get back in before the boss has moved out of position, that's very much the best of both worlds, and you get a more active tanking style that's more engaging, and your healers aren't pulling the hair out if you happen to be running with a healer. And if you're not running with a healer, you definitely need to be avoiding the damage. Lionheart's Perseverance. This synergizes incredibly well with Champion's Return. So the Champion's Return kicks in at 50%. Lionheart kicks in lower, so it means if you get some persistent damage on you, say a lot of mobs, Champion's Return will kick off and just bring you up a little bit more. And then as you're going down further, the Lionhearts will kick in and push you back up again. And hopefully that gives you enough time alive that the DPS can then destroy the whatever's causing you the damage basically. Use Knight's Condemnation because you're going to be more consistently getting combat advantage damage than you are going to be like the other ones. One of them works off a deflect and another one works off a crit strike, I think. Oh no, yeah. One of them happens when you get a control effect on you. One of them is when you do a crit, and one of them is when you deflect. So the one that is no chance involved really is the combat advantage damage. You'll almost certainly always be taking combat advantage damage, basically. And yes, that is about it. Obviously the usual disclaimer applies. My builds are what I build for my playstyle. It's not going to work for everybody. This is a very niche sort of build because it's very unlikely anybody is ever going to be running without a healer. But this could form the basis for a build for whatever you happen to be running. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you like this video, please leave it a like. If you like a lot of videos, please subscribe. Take it easy, and I will see you in the next one.